What's up? What's up? What's up? My PBM family, what's up? Another segment of Old School Cops. Who's riding shotgun with me today is a guy who's from the community. He spent many years in law enforcement, detective, sergeant. He's worked the community. He's from the community, and I value his assessments because not everybody who wore the uniform understands the culture, the community, and understands how to apply force at times. So, you know, a street cops call good street cops street cops. We call guys who don't understand the street cops. So there's a huge difference, and only cops would understand what I'm talking about. None against the cops, but you're talking to a bunch of street cops. Street cops for the audience is guys who normally understands the community, understands how and when to apply force, doesn't take the job personal. Their skin is normally a little thicker. You're not gonna see a street cop getting involved with, oh, my feelings is hurt, so I'm gonna make up a disorderly conduct. You interfering and you're not listening to me. You're not gonna get that from a street cop. All right, first and foremost. So we're gonna do a little assessment with this particular video. I like that you guys are sending more and more videos, but this particular one, the question I have for my audience is, do you believe that the officers used enough force? Me personally, being a street cop and someone who used a lot of force, I think the officers didn't use enough force. And what I mean by that is your job as the officers, get on the scene and control it as quick as possible by whatever means you need, whether it's communication, if you have to use force, using the least and minimum amount of force necessary to control the scene. It looks like they decided to take the one female and into custody. She had a lot of friends, and they did not like her friend being placed in custody. So you see a lot of resistance. You see a lot of interference. For me, that second officer, whose job is to cover the first officer who put hands, who's making contact, who's placing the girl under arrest, his job was to protect her. As you see, he didn't protect her. Her focus is on placing the girl in the custody, her subject in the custody, and he had a lot going on. First and foremost, I would have grabbed my mace, and I've done this before. I just would have been sprayed. These girls was walking up on him. It was physical confrontations. One of the girls grabbed the officer's hair and pulled her off. I'm like, dude, you're supposed to be covering her. You need to cover her. He didn't do that. He had OC spray. I would have been, yeah. Let me tell you something. That OC spray does wonders. You wanna back some people up, you spray, and you spray. You call for another unit, you call for multiple units. When the units get there, you start telling units, listen, she was interfering. Definitely, I need her in custody. I need that one in custody. And you take these people and you place them in custody, because what you see was a total lack of him making sure she was safe. He had tools on his belt that he could have used, not the firearm, but tools on his belt that he could have used to actually finish the job, and he didn't do that. So I'm definitely giving him an F on that. If it was me, I don't know if y'all would have been monitored, because, you know, y'all type of an audience, if you see any type of force, y'all be like, oh, no, it was just police brutality. Listen, I'm from the community. I know when enough force is enough force. And this right here wasn't enough force. I mean, the girl got her hair pulled. It was, I ain't even going, y'all seen it. Go ahead, partner. Tell them what you think.
You know, it's really interesting that you mentioned this, because I remember us actually working together, and you were in the midst, and you was like, yo, Tone, get that one right there. And I had to go and get him. So what you're saying is what we've done before, you know?
Right.
And I think, you know, from the beginning, to get the PBM viewers involved, maybe our question should have been, was it too much force? Was it the right amount of force? Or was it excessive force or not enough force? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then we started explaining, because you are exactly right. We don't even know if he even called for assistance in the mix of everything. And it only takes a split second while he's dealing with one, where another one could actually take the weapon of the female officer who's in the midst of everything. And you have a bad situation going. So it wasn't enough force used, and that situation was kind of out of hand because it was like being attacked by wolves, which is dangerous. Dangerous.
No, I definitely agree. And for the audience, right? You got to understand, force never looks pretty, regardless how or what force you use. But during this job that everybody signed up, all these officers signed up to do, right? Sometimes you got to use force. The question is not whether uh, the force was necessary, because that's what we all talk about. Was the force was did they have to use force this occasion? Did they have to use force that? Sometimes you got to use force. So we as a community, or you guys as a community, y'all should be sitting there looking at each incident as an individual incident and going, did the officers use the right amount of force necessary to affect that particular arrest? So don't take one incident and apply it to every incident, because every incident is different. The amount of force you use is different. But when you look at this, I'm asking y'all guys to look at this particular incident. Put your hat on, not your anti-cop hat on, but put your hat on. If you had to control this particular incident and that your suspect was placed in custody or trying to be placed in custody, you had a group of people running at you, and no, she didn't do anything. They was physically touching you, physically putting their hands on you, grab the other officer. What else did you want the officers to do? Like, for me, I look at the officer, the way he responded, and he didn't respond in the appropriate manner to maintain the safety of his partner. The partner got the hair pulled, physical contact. The suspect now is not even in custody no more. That was just chaotic. It was just chaotic. I'm telling y'all. And look, I don't like to share certain things, but you shared it, right? Because I don't want people to think it was biased, right? But you are absolutely right. The situation that I was in was very similar to this situation, right? I was locking somebody up, and they had a gun. I was locking somebody up. They had an illegal gun, and his boys came. And I called for other units. I backed up. I had the mace. There was other people around. Detective Sergeant was the first one on scene, and I was like, him. Another person came on scene. I was like, him. I just started locking people up who initially was doing exactly what these young ladies were doing. At the end of the day, it was all crazy. So I had all these people at lockup, and I'm processing them. And what do you know? Because of the level of respect, even after the incident, the guys was like, yo, my bad, officer. I was just bugging out. That was my man. And you should have seen the level of respect that I received from people that I was put in jail, just processed to go to jail. Because of, they was, let me tell you something. I had so much respect how they took accountability for being wrong. When it was time to come to court, they apologized in front of the judge, the court, and was like, look, the officer didn't do anything wrong. We was wrong. He did everything right he's supposed to have done. We was just bugging out. We sorry. The judge looked at me and said, officer, what do you want to do? I said, that rarely happens. And because they was being held accountable for their actions, they admitted, Your Honor, whatever kind of breaks you want to give, I have no problems, whatever you want to do. And I appreciate them, just being men and understanding like, yo, I was wrong. And he gave him a slap on the wrist. I had no problem with that. And so, I mean, I understand when it comes down to seeing force that's excessive, but we still got to support when it's done right, and we need to condemn when it's done wrong. So for this particular incident, man, he could have done a lot more. He could have done a lot more. So with that said, you got anything else to say before I wrap this one up?
Yeah, to your point, excellent point, where we tend to look at the officer and do an evaluation and assess whether, and not being anti-cop, but, did he do the right thing? Did it call for the right thing? That works both ways. We have to look at whether the individuals involved, whether it's the bystanders, the friends, the suspects, whatever, how their behavior was. Were they behaving appropriate or inappropriate? And they were behaving very inappropriate. how do I say it? To sum it up, that was hood behavior. And the thing that I don't like, right, is when particularly people of color are standing by and they're at a scene and they're watching a loved one go through the process. I've seen officers just pick them out for no reason and be very aggressive and lock them up for no reason whatsoever, all because they're expressing concern for their loved one. They didn't enter the scene, the area, they didn't obstruct, they weren't, no hands-on, no violence. So
Right.
that kind of works both ways. I mean, you be a law-abiding citizen, and I like to use the person of color in the community, and so we could paint a visual because that's where a lot of the calls come from. We talk about police brutality and injustice. It works the same way for whites, Latinos, Asian, everything across the country, across the world. If you're doing policing and you're assessing and evaluating, so I just want it to be where we understand and explain a right from wrong through the lens when we look at policing and through the lens that when we look through a community that is in a situation.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do is ask the viewers in your comments, let me know, what do you think? Was the officers too aggressive? Was they not aggressive enough? Just tell me how you feel about this particular incident. You got my view, you got Detective Sergeant's view. So make sure you continually support the page, subscribe, like, and share. Share the hell out, because I want to start inviting my audience, members from my audience, to come and join us, ask questions about certain things, understand what we go through as law enforcement when we dealing, because there's a lot. It's easy to sit back and look at something and go, oh, that was just too wrong. It was just too wrong. The biggest thing that I've had when I had people who ride alongs is actually go, wow, I never would have looked at it like that. And sometimes it just takes educating. And I think that's what the police department has, where they drop the ball on it. I was always one to communicate and explain what I was doing. Officers, a lot of officers I work with, they felt that they didn't have to do that. I'm the cops. I don't have to explain myself to you. I was the totally opposite. I felt that regardless of how you took it, you got an explanation about what actions I took. And how you take it is totally up to you. But I felt the need to let you know why I'm doing this. So that was just my take on how I've done it throughout my many years in law enforcement. And please let us know how you feel about this particular incident. Keep sending the videos and keep supporting us. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you next video.